All right, good afternoon, everybody in person and on Zoom or in the future. I hope you all had a great long weekend. My name is Brooke Wells, and I'm a Learning and Development Specialist for Knoxville TVA Employees Credit Union. And I'm here today to talk to you guys about how to deliver an effective presentation. So I know what you guys might be thinking. What does this girl that works at a bank know about giving effective presentations? Well, I'll give you a little background on me. So I actually went to Pellissippi. I graduated in 2014, and that was really my first exposure to public speaking. You know, we've got public speaking classes that we have to take. And then I actually went on to go across the street to King University to get my bachelor's in communication. So there I practiced public speaking, professional and creative writing, all forms of communication. So while I was at King, I actually started working for the credit union as well. And that was really my third exposure to public speaking, and I'll go on to explain more in a little bit. But today, I want to convey to you guys the importance of public speaking and how public speaking and delivering an effective presentation can yield your desired results in your career and in your life in general. And also I want to take you through my personal process of crafting and delivering an effective presentation. So first off, I want to start out by just kind of explaining to you how personal speaking has changed my life and my career, and talking about the importance of giving an effective presentation. So when I started working at the credit union, I started as a teller in the Turkey Creek branch, so doing financial transactions, what you would expect someone who works at a bank or credit union to do. Deposits, withdrawals, cashing checks, doing loans, new accounts. And so after about a year of doing that and learning everything I can in the branch world, I moved up to the Learning and Development Department. So there I conducted internal trainings, so welcoming people to the credit union when they started their jobs at the credit union, talking to them about our culture and our history, and just teaching them the ins and outs and being the welcome wagon of the credit union. So that's really where my public speaking at the credit union began. Then after about 4 years of doing internal trainings, I started to go out into the community, talking to mainly high school students about financial literacy. And there I realized that there was a huge gap in public education that needed to be filled with financial literacy. So while I was doing these community workshops, I realized that that really was my passion, and I wanted to do that full time. So what I had to do was create a job description, not only write the job description, but come up with a proposal to present this idea to my manager, my manager's manager, and the executive team of the credit union. So that's the first time that my presentation skills really affected how my career proceeded and how my life would change from there. And ultimately, they went for it. So my presentation skills really influenced my career in that way directly. Another example I have is I'm also the grant coordinator for the credit union's Foundation for Education. So we give $1,500 to public high schools in our service areas. Now that process, when I stepped into it, was completely manual. So I would take applications from teachers who filled them out by hand. I would compile those and write a summary for each of them. And for context, we got 120 applications last year. So it was a lot of work for one person. So I did some research on some online platforms that the foundation could use that would streamline this process and make it easier for everyone. So where does presentation come into that? This program that I found costs $7,000 a year, which doesn't seem like a lot, but asking a company to spend $7,000 to make my job easier, it's not an easy feat. So I really had to use my presentation skills to present this to the board of directors and the executive team, and they went for it. So that's another example of how presentation skills have directly affected my career and my life. So hopefully you can see just the importance of having good presentation skills and how that can influence your future. And it can get you the results that you're desiring. So now that we kind of understand the importance of presentation skills and how they can influence your career and your future, I want to just take you through some things that I've learned putting together these presentations and some things that have been successful for me and the process that I follow each time I'm putting a presentation together. So the very first thing that I do in my process is to brainstorm. And this is, in my opinion, the most important part of putting together a presentation. And the first thing I do in my brainstorm is I figure out what my main message is. Now, there's a famous speaker and author named Simon Sinek. You may have heard of him, but he did a TED Talk and wrote a book called Start With Why. And he argues in his book and his TED Talk that people, and he uses companies as his example, but companies will tell you what they do and how they do it, but a lot of them don't get to the heart of their message or why they do what they do. And Simon Sinek argues that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that has been a key point in my experience of creating these presentations. That has been a game changer. So I always start with, what is my message that I'm wanting to convey to my audience? What is the main idea or the main takeaway that I want them to have at the end of my presentation? And I craft my presentation around that main idea. So the next part in my brainstorming is I think about my audience. Who is my audience? Who am I speaking to? And what can I say that's going to get their attention and make them want to listen to me and to hear what I have to say? My presentations that I do for a classroom of fourth graders is going to look very different than my presentations that I do for students and adults. So really thinking about the age group, what do my audience, what do they know about the topic that I'm going to be presenting about, and what do they need to know? So considering your audience is at the top of the list as well. Then I think about what I know about this topic. It's easy for us to talk about the things that we know. So I, in my mind, think about, okay, what are the things that I know? How do they relate back to my message? And what are some things that I don't know? So once I figure out what I do know, I research to fill in my knowledge gaps from there. That way I can get a clearer picture of what I'm trying to convey to my audience, and I can anticipate any questions that my audience may have. So once I've brainstormed all these ideas, I like to, what I call, do a brain dump, which is a really weird term to use, I know, but it just means I get all of those ideas out of my head and onto paper so that I can clearly see my presentation coming to life. Part of the brainstorming session that I do is also taking my information and grouping like pieces of information together. And those pieces of information are going to become the main points of my presentation, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And then all the other pieces of information fall under those main points and then reinforce those main points. Now I have all of my information before me. I can start to organize my information into an outline. So a basic outline for a speech consists of an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. In my process, I like to start by crafting the body of my speech, which is going to be about 85% of your speech. So tackling the biggest part first. The body of your speech is going to be 3 to 5 main points that you want to convey to your audience that reinforces your main message. So those are the main ideas that you pinpointed in your brainstorm session. You're just going to plug those in there. And then for each of your 3 to 5 main points, you're going to reinforce those points with stories, statistics, any research that you did in your brainstorm session, references, anything like that that's going to support that main point and convey that main point to your audience. And you're going to do that for each of your main points. And that's going to make up the majority of your presentation. Once you have the body of your speech outlined, I then go to my introduction. And having that body outlined will make writing your introduction and your conclusion so much easier. When I was in school, I always liked to jump to the visuals of my presentation first because I'm a creative person and that part was fun for me. But I quickly realized that I needed to start with the base of my presentation and then add on the visuals later. The introduction is going to consist of an attention device opener. So this is something that gets your audience's attention and makes them want to listen to you and want to hear what you have to say. So again, that could be a question, a very thought-provoking question that links back to your main message. It could be an alarming statistic. I've seen a lot of different speeches that start with a statistic, an example, a story, which is my personal favorite. I feel like stories really give you the chance to connect with your audience in a very personal way, or anything, again, to just grab their attention. So you've got your introduction, you've got your body, and then you need a conclusion, so something to wrap up your presentation. And the conclusion is going to be a review of your main points. Oh no, I didn't finish introduction, sorry. So the introduction, you get an attention device opener, then you're going to state your main idea. And this is that main message that you identified in your brainstorm session. That's the why behind what you're saying. And then you're going to preview those 3 to 5 main points. So sorry about that. And then the conclusion is, again, restating those 3 to 5 main points, and then leaving your audience with a final thought or a call to action. So you want to yield some sort of result from your presentation. So this is a chance to either leave your audience with something to think about, or a call to have them actually do something with the information that you have provided to them. And this is just the basic outline of your speech. Now, what I do from here, now that I have it all mapped out for me, I practice extemporaneous speech. Now, this is very important. This is something that was pivotal for me in my public speaking abilities, and this is something that has really stuck with me throughout the years. So, extemporaneous speech is a type of public speaking that involves delivering a carefully prepared but not memorized speech on a given topic. So I'm sure you have had the same experience that I have had when you're sitting through a presentation and the person is basically just reading what's on the screen to you. It's miserable, right? It's not personal. It feels very stale. But if you have been in a presentation where the person is talking directly to you and it feels like a conversation, you really connect with it better than you would someone just reading to you. So that's the importance of extemporaneous speech. What I do is I take my outline that I've built, and that's basically the bones of my presentation. To actually craft the presentation, I do that out loud. So I'll stand up in the space that I'm practicing in, and I'll start with my introduction. I will out loud introduce myself. I'll introduce the main message that I'm trying to convey, and I'll preview my 3 points. And I'll tweak it, and I'll tweak it, and I'll tweak it out loud again and again and again until it feels organic, until it feels natural and easy for me. And then I'll do that with the body of my speech. So taking each main point and talking through it out loud, coming up with ideas of what I want to say and how I want to say it. And I'll do that for my conclusion as well. So just building your speech out loud instead of reading a script from a paper or a prompt on the screen, it'll really help your conversational style of speaking, and it will really help the audience connect to you personally so they hear what you're trying to convey to them. All right, so once I extemporaneously craft my speech, I will practice over and over and over and over again, upwards of 10 plus times, until everything flows together, everything feels comfortable to me, and it just feels personal, and it feels like my audience is really going to understand what I'm trying to say. I'll also practice standing up, just like I would in the actual presentation. I'll practice in front of a mirror because I want to see what my body is naturally doing as I'm speaking. I want to make sure that I talk with my hands. So sometimes my hand movements can detract from what I'm trying to say. And you want the attention to be on your words, not whatever you're doing with your hands. Anchorman moment, like, I don't know what to do with my hands. But I want to see, am I pacing too much? Am I using my hands to really enhance what I'm saying? Or is it detracting from what I'm saying? I practice projecting my voice, so it's very helpful if you know how big the room is going to be that you're presenting in. You want to make sure everyone can hear you. And I'll practice with a timer. So I have sat through presentations where the speaker finishes way earlier than they're meant to, and that's really uncomfortable for them and for me as an audience member. And I've sat through a presentation, one I can think of in particular. The speaker had 15 minutes to talk about a topic, and that 15 minutes came And it went and it went and it went on for 45 minutes. And that was so uncomfortable for everyone involved. After that 15 minutes was done, my attention was not on what the speaker was saying. It was on, oh my goodness, is he going to get cut off? What's going to happen? You know, I'm just worried about everything around me instead of what he's saying. So I practice with a timer to make sure that I'm not that speaker and that I'm going for the time that I'm allotted. I'll also practice, once I'm comfortable with my speech, in front of a friend, in front of a coworker, in front of someone that I trust to give me constructive feedback. So I can look at myself in a mirror and I can hear myself speak all day, but it's not going to matter if I don't know how my audience is going to react to my presentation. So I will pull in someone that I trust, someone that I know is going to give me good feedback, not someone that I think is going to tear me down or, really just bring me down as a presenter. And I'll get their feedback and I'll take that into account, and then I'll practice again and again and again. So that is really my personal process of how to build and deliver an effective presentation. And these things have really helped me advance my career, and it's helped me just feel more fulfilled in life. I can talk to people without, now don't get me wrong, I'm not the best speaker and I still get nervous, but I can talk to people and make conversation with people even when it's hard, because I've done it so many different times and in front of different groups. So I hope that this has given you some inspiration as a public speaker or an aspiring public speaker or as an aspiring career person, because you can use these things in any career that you choose to do. And I hope that my personal process, you can take away a few things that will help you in your presentations and to help you achieve the results that you desire through public speaking. All right, so I'm going to open up the room for any questions. If you have any questions through Zoom, please put them in the chat. And then if we have time, the people in person will do an activity. So if you don't want to do an activity, make sure to ask questions. But I'll go ahead and open up any questions about presenting, the credit union, what I do, anything. Yes. Oh.
Do you change what you're doing, like, based on the size of the audience?
Absolutely, yes. So the size of the audience is super important. And something that I didn't go into as well is the venue. What resources are you going to have when you're speaking to a larger group, a smaller group, because that will really affect the handouts that you have, if you want to have handouts, or the mode of communication. Are we on Zoom? Are we in person? Is it a mix? Yes, so that definitely affects your presentation style. Yeah.
So what do you do differently for, like, the larger groups?
For the larger groups, I tend not to have physical handouts because it can be too much to get everything passed out. Instead, I'll have more virtual resources that people can access. And I'll also practice projecting my voice just to make sure I have the right tone. If there's a microphone available, there's a lot of things that you can consider when talking to those larger groups. Thank you. Yes?
Can you elaborate a little bit on your process for determining what type of attention device opener?
Yes. Yeah. So like I said, my favorite attention device opener is stories. I think being able to tell a story can really help you connect with people, but not everyone is a storyteller, and that's okay. Some people feel more confident using facts and figures. And if that drives home your point, I think that's the device getter that you should use. Some people like to use real life examples of what they're speaking about, and that can make a huge impact as well because it's been done before. You can see that it works. So whatever the topic that you're talking about and whatever your personal preference is, I think that should influence your device getter. Does that answer your question? Okay, perfect. Yes.
As far as the
Yes, yeah.
how do you say it?
Extemporaneous.
Extemporaneous.
Mm-hmm.
Do you record yourself?
Yes, absolutely.
Record or audio or what do you like?
So I've done both. Recording yourself is a great way to, again, just see how you sound, the inflections that you use, but also how you carry yourself, your posture, your hand movements, your pacing. Or if you are just really concerned about, am I making this flow correctly? Is the structure of my presentation what I want it to be? You can use voice recording as well. So both of those tools are great tools to use. Yeah. Yes.
This is not a question, this is more of a statement of things I've read, but there's been a lot of research done showing that people actually remember more of what you say if you speak without notes.
Yes, absolutely. So if you are using any sort of visual aid or even notes for yourself on a piece of paper, a lot of times if people are focused on what's on the screen, they're not focused on what you're saying. So in order to avoid death by PowerPoint or death by reading your notes, to remember that. What people are going to remember is what you say to them and how you say it to them. If they make a personal connection with you, then they're more likely to, one, pay attention through the duration of your presentation, and two, remember what you're saying. There is a statistic somewhere that people remember about 30% of what you say. I believe someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but after your presentation, people only remember a little bit of what you're saying. Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you. All right. Other questions? Do we have anything on Zoom? Nothing? All right. Yes.
I know that you said that you are seasoned as far as speeches and giving presentations to shows.
Thank you.
My question is, how many presentations can you do? Give cases to nurse. What's your best?
So I was actually talking to Taylor about this the other day. There is another TED Talk. I love TED Talks, but there's another TED Talk about how your body language influences your mind. So one thing that I try to do is do the Superwoman pose and try to just take up as much space as possible, because for some scientific reason that I can't remember, that helps me feel more confident instead of really just like crouching down and trying to take up as least space as possible. It makes me feel powerful. And I also try to remember that this is just 1 hour of my life. Although I want to make an impact, overall, this hour is just a blip in time. And so that kind of takes the pressure off of me as the speaker. But yeah, those are the two things that I try to work into my routine and also just practice.